Hello and welcome to SimCast, the Higher Education Simulation Podcast. My name's Tony Jeremy. I'm the Academic Lead for Simulation-Based Education at UEA Norwich. Normally, I'd hand over to my colleague Lawrence to introduce himself, but Lawrence isn't here today because, as you can probably see if you're watching the video, we're not in the studio. We're actually at SimTech Live. So I've got a special guest host with me today, Nicola Cook.
I hope I am an adequate Lawrence replacement.
I think
I've probably got slightly more hair. No offence, Lawrence. Sorry. I'm really delighted to join you on the SimCast today. It's our pleasure to have you here and to be covering the event.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Be asked to come to SimTech Live, and what we're going to be doing throughout the podcast today is to be looking at some of the guests that you've invited and to sort of see what they're talking about. Yeah,
we're so blessed to have such a wonderful range of workshop hosts joining us over the 2 days from all different kinds of backgrounds. We've got both technicians and we've also got people who work manufacturing equipment for simulation centres as well. So a whole range of experiences that they can share with the community, which is what it's all about, really, sharing that knowledge, sharing those experiences, and also giving the technicians time to share their own knowledge between each other as well.
Great. If you enjoyed the episode, give us a like. Equally so, if you didn't like the episode, give us a dislike, but let us know in the comments why, because we're always keen to improve. To keep up to date with all things Sim, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to check that notification bell. And SimCast is available on all popular streaming platforms. So, Nicola, before we go any further into sort of the meat on the bones of what the conference is about, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into the industry.
So I am a little bit of a criminal career changer. I'm on my third career. So I started out life actually doing something very similar to this. I worked in radio.
Okay.
And I worked in television. So I spent quite a long time working at Sky News and working in the gallery there. Doing live television, which is definitely not as stressful as working as a doctor or a nurse, nothing like that.
I'm slightly embarrassed now knowing your background in radio and television, because as you can see, in my haste to pack the studio up, I forgot one of the boom arms. So
you would be surprised how much smoke and mirrors is involved, even in a big station like Sky News. I was shocked when I started working there. I'm sure it's completely different now to anybody who's still at Sky News. But there's so much smoke and mirrors even going on for the big guys.
All right, but background in media?
Background in media, and then I switched to teaching. So for the past 10 years or so, I've been a teacher, teaching 4 and 5-year-old children. So went from working with media people to working with very small children. And now I am the Director of Marketing at Sim & Skills, which sounds like another massive jump in a different direction.
Does, doesn't it? Yeah.
However, most of our customers are teachers.
Okay.
So in terms of what we're trying to achieve with our marketing, we always want to be understanding what our customers need, what their stresses and strains are, and how we can be a solution and a help for that. So having been a teacher myself, not teaching simulation, although actually the amount of times I've compared my teaching to simulation, because I taught in reception and nursery, and we are basically creating simulated adult worlds. I'll have a role play kitchen and then a vets, and then I'll have a superheroes HQ, trying to make it look as realistic and immersive as possible. And there are so many terms in simulation that cross over. Yeah. And obviously you guys would never use the term play.
Well, you know what? Play has got a big place in simulation and certainly in higher education. But it's interesting, isn't it? You go from reception, you go all the way through your education into higher education, and you come back to that same
again.
Kind of play and simulation. Interesting.
But immersive learning for that age range was one of the things I was really passionate about as a teacher, because anybody who's got young children will know that, unfortunately, the school system we have in this country is that it's more faster, as soon as you can, trying to get children to be very academic from a very, very young age. And it doesn't really work for very young children because they're still developing. Yeah. And the best way for children to learn is through play and immersing them in a world that allows them to bring their skills to the fore, which essentially is what simulation is. Good simulation scenarios are going to create that immersive environment where everything you've been taught so far, you can actually show and develop in those settings. So I've taken both my experience as a teacher to really understand our customers, but also we do an awful lot of our own video editing, filming. We haven't branched out into podcasts yet, but
that's only a matter of time.
A matter of time. So yeah, we have our own studio up at our HQ in Chesterfield.
Excellent.
We do lots of webinars from there and demos. So yeah, I'm sort of combining the skills that I've learned along the way.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I've found myself in the crazy world of simulation.
And so you said 3.5 years, so a relatively new company in the industry.
Yes,
but already making some big moves.
We are, yes. We began in 2020, at the very end of 2020 during COVID. So our managing director, Mark Cook, who's also my husband. That's not the only reason I got the job, but it's always
it's who you know, right?
Yeah. So he started the company on his own, having worked for the likes of Lairdale and for some other simulation companies as well, but decided, actually, I want to do things differently.
Yeah.
I've seen and experienced how large companies do things. I want to do things differently. So he started the company on his own, but after about 18 months, it became already a bit of a beast and needed more people to run it.
And do you know what? We're seeing this in simulation, aren't we? Particularly the commercial side. There's a real boom and a lot of, I guess, in like you would say in IT and tech, startup companies coming through.
Yeah, that's
and making moves.
And it's almost, I don't want to downplay what Mark achieved in the beginning, but it's almost easier to get a company started because we started pretty much solely online and used different facilities that you can use to distribute to customers. But then when I came on, I think I've pretty much done every role in this company, which is why I can't talk about it. So we moved from packing boxes in our house to in a self-storage unit. So we had a self-storage unit for about a year. We ended up in one round the size of this room to having 4 of this size. Didn't have any heating. The people that ran the site, I think, used to take so much pity on me because it would be ice cold in there in the winter. They just come and bring me cups of tea.
You're always in there sorting stuff out.
Just go and sort things out. Logistics, customer service, anything. But then, thankfully, just over a year ago, we had Chris Dinsdale and Kieran Feeney, who you may know them from Lairdale and from CAE now Elevate. So they're really experienced in simulation, and they came on board with us, and then we could start growing the team. So we now have a proper warehouse office space up in Chesterfield.
Fantastic.
Which is developing all the time. And there are now, as of this week, 13 of us in our team. So we've in really short space of time. So one of our strengths, I guess, and because we've had to be this way, is that we are having to be really agile.
Yeah.
We're able to move on things really quickly. So we are always listening to our customers. Between us on the marketing side and the sales team, we're not just going in hard selling, but we're going in to properly listen. And sometimes we speak to customers and they need a solution that we don't currently sell, but we will go and find it. We'll go and find suppliers from all over the world and find it and bring it back to the UK and make sure it's right for this market and that it's what customers want. But we can evolve that quickly.
Great.
Which in a way has helped us to get this event off the ground quite quickly as
so
well.
Looking at this event, so we're at the inaugural.
Yes, the very first,
SimTech Live.
SimTech Live, yes. So
why SimTech Live? Why set up a conference?
I've asked myself a couple of times actually over the past few months. So I've just, in my welcome talk to all the technicians here, SimTech Live was born from a very hazy, tired but adrenaline-fueled drive after ASPiH last year in November. So we were all driving back from Brighton separately in our cars, and Kieran, our sales director, said, "Wouldn't it be great if we hosted our own event?
Yeah,
we could do this. We could host our own event, and wouldn't it be even better if we hosted it for the community within simulation that is often overlooked?"
Yeah.
The simulation technicians, simulation technicians get to come to ASPiH. But
if they're lucky, because a lot of these conferences are really, really expensive, aren't they? And
they are.
If you've got institutional funding, fine.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, that really, blocks out a lot of people.
It's a massive barrier, and that was one of the things that we considered in creating this event, is that we would make it entirely free.
Yeah.
So so after that conversation, we sort of mulled over a few different options. And then back in January of this year, we sent a survey out to as many technicians as we possibly could. I think we got about 70 replies back. And it was asking all kinds of things. Do you want a conference for you in the first place? Are we barking up the wrong tree? Time of year that you'd like to have it held? What kind of workshops do you want to see? And that's where kind of it was born and developed from, because we didn't want to host an event that actually people don't want. So in this way that we've structured it, in terms of having carousel workshops that are running all at the same time, and everybody gets to go to all of them, they don't have to pick and choose, to have some breaks in between workshops so people can actually network with each other. Those were the things that they said were really important. So that's how we've kind of designed it.
Yeah, and I popped my head in because I came in earlier, and I've already done a couple of interviews before our little segue here. And I've just put my head in the plenary session, and it's clear to see there's plenty of interest, isn't there? There's loads of people. It's fantastic.
we have got nearly 70 technicians in attendance today, and it's so fantastic, because even though the event is free, it's still people's time to get in time from off work. I'm having to leave
travel across the country.
Travel. So we're really appreciative that everybody has taken the time. Because
it's probably worth saying, actually, we're at the Midlands Air Ambulance headquarters. What an amazing venue.
It is an incredible venue. We went and visited in our kind of research phase a couple of different venues, some really great universities that were happy to kind of host for us. But when we came here, it just sort of blew us away, really. It's a brand new headquarters that was only built a year ago, and it's such an impressive space.
Yeah, it's great.
Some really good function rooms that we're using for our main sessions, but lots of good training spaces as well, so we can host different rooms. And it's nice to keep everybody kind of together. Sometimes you go to venues and everybody's scattered on different floors, and then you lose everybody. And there's two amazing things about this space. There's an outdoor garden area. So this evening we're having a barbecue.
We're being papped by your husband right now.
Go away, he's trying to always get in. We've got a barbecue social event for everybody later on, because that is just nice to get everybody together. They've been working hard all day in the workshops, and then let everybody have that downtime.
It's bits like that that's really where the networking comes into its own. It really does. And you get people talking about so many common issues and problems that they have.
And the odd beer or two might help conversations flow as well. So,
absolutely.
But the really cool thing about this place, obviously, is that there are helicopters.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's already been a little bit of drama. So if you see any red or blue lights flashing in the background, it means one of the helicopters is about to take off.
Yeah, we did.
And I'm going to try my best to try and get some B-roll of that, because why not when you're at a venue like this?
Exactly. We did forewarn everybody this morning when we started that there's no fire drills planned. So if there is an alarm, it will be a fire evacuation, apart from this alarm, which is the sirens going off and, the helicopters.
And if you're in the middle of a presentation,
just stop.
Just cancel it, because you haven't got anyone's attention.
You could be 5 or 50. You're still going to want to run and see a helicopter take off. I think we had them take off 5 times yesterday when we were setting up, and it was just eyes wide, mouth drawn. just got to go and look at helicopter takeoff.
So we're obviously at the start of SimTech Live. So it's a 2-day, 1.5 day, 2-day conference. Yeah. I don't know whether it's the right time to ask you whether there's going to be another one after this, because I'm sure you're still sort of recovering from the planning.
Digest it.
A lot of planning goes into this, right?
Yes. So like I said, we started thinking about this in November of last year, but the planning started in earnest in January of this year. And it's involved all different kinds of things. Like I said, consulting with the technicians to see what it is they'd actually like from an event, visiting venues, and then anybody who plans events full-time as a job, you have got my absolute admiration, because trying to get people together and to get the information
I've done
out.
some smaller scale but national kind of things in a former life, and it's always challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you haven't had to get money out of people, which...
Nope, that would have been a hurdle, perhaps a step too far. Generally, everybody that we've been speaking to has been really great and really responsive. But I don't think I quite realised at the beginning that it's speaking and dealing with attendees, workshop hosts, caterers. We're providing hotel accommodation tonight for everybody.
So many moving parts,
There's lots of moving parts. So it's just making sure everything kind of falls into line. I didn't sleep too well last night. It was a little bit like a kind of a Christmas Eve type sleep, where it was just, you've got all these things going around in your head, whether they'll happen or not. But fingers crossed, so far, everything is working fantastically well. And
it'd be lovely to see this as an annual thing?
Yes, that is our plan, that it would be an annual thing. We're going to get feedback from everybody when we finish tomorrow, and we'll take all of that on board and try to make it an even better event next year. So, yeah.
So you've obviously done a lot of the behind the scenes and the planning. What are you looking forward to the most over the next 2 days?
In my head, I had this vision of the point I want to get to, which is tonight. I want to be able to look out over the barbecue tonight and see lots of smiling faces and see lots of happy customers that are just having really great conversations, and that there's this sharing of knowledge and this recognition of the really important role that technicians play across universities and NHS trusts. One of the things that we decided to do for the event to both be a little bit more sustainable, to reduce the paper load, but also to develop a community, is that we've created an online platform community, SimTech Live Online. And that's a space where technicians have all signed up to share the ideas. Often when you go to workshops at conferences, you're really excited about the things that you've heard and you've learned.
Yeah.
You go back to your institutions and you're like, what? What was that thing?
Yeah.
What was that really cool product I saw? What was that really good process that they were talking about?
That website, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. So all of the workshops have got their own space on there. Workshop hosts have provided for like handouts that they're going to be using, and then people can comment and share ideas. So the conversations that we're having here over the next 2 days don't need to stop here. They can carry on. They can carry on, and even colleagues that weren't able to come can join the platform as well, so that it can continue as a community. Because I think for lots of technicians, and it's a thing that I experienced when I was teaching, if you're kind of the only person in your building that does the thing that you do, it can be a little bit isolating. So the best thing to do is to reach out to people who are doing your job in other places and share ideas and share experiences as well. So often you think things are bad or they're hard to deal with, and actually you go and speak to somebody else and they find a workaround or a way to deal with something, and it just makes everything so much better. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for inviting us here to do the podcast. So, as I said, the rest of the podcast is going to be me interviewing the people who are presenting and speaking. Yep. So we'll find out a little bit about their backgrounds and also what they're talking about over the next 2 days.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for having us and joining us at SimTech Live.
Our pleasure. So I'm joined now by Chris Porter. Chris, thank you for coming to speak to me today.
Pleasure.
So could you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the simulation industry?
Yeah, so I've been in the software and audio-visual industries for about 20 years. Okay. Started the company which we called Immersive Interactive, started that about 12 years ago with my business partner. And initially we were focused on education. Okay. So especially special needs and primary education. But about kind of 2 years into starting a business, we got approached by a local anaesthetist asking, could we take the same technology and apply that to simulation? So a couple of weeks later, we were in Scrubs, we were filming in a hospital, and basically in the simulation business from then on.
So for anyone who doesn't know, what does Immersive Interactive do then?
Yeah, so we do immersive rooms. So what easy way to think about that is basically a virtual reality classroom or room. So we project on the walls, we have surround sound, you can touch the walls and interact with. So it's an immersive space. So the room or the classroom becomes the immersive environment. So there's no headset, you can have shared experiences.
And provided whatever, you can basically project whatever you want onto the...
Exactly, yeah. So that's the key benefit. So the thing about a simulation centre, you can do any environment. Yeah. So it could be a domestic environment, the back of an ambulance, the scene of an incident, and you could, essentially do the whole patient journey.
Yeah, so lots and lots of flexibility.
Yeah, go from room to room to room. And, as you say, you can create your own content as well. So it's all about having fresh content and keeping it, up to date, dynamic and relevant to what you're teaching.
Great stuff. So why are you here at SimTech Live? What have you come to talk about today?
Yeah, so my presentation is about creating effective immersive experiences. So I'm trying to keep it quite generic to, immersive experience in general. So that might include VR, it might include just general simulation. And I'm trying to, pick out the key elements and the key learnings that we've done, over the past 12 years, things we've learned that you can basically incorporate into your simulations or cases or escape rooms is another thing we're looking at in order to make them a little bit more effective. So hopefully the participants today will come away with some actionable tips that they can take away just to, make the experiences more engaging for their students.
Great stuff. So you're obviously presenting here today. Have you had an opportunity to look at the rest of the agenda?
Yes, I had a little bit of a look. It looks really good.
Anything that tickles your fancy?
Yeah, do you know what? There's a VR talk there's happening. I think that's tomorrow. I'll definitely take a look at that because obviously interested in all kinds of immersive technologies, VR.
Yeah. So technology is right up your street.
Yeah, it's not just the technology, it's more like the content as well and how that's delivered. So anything simulation and scenario based and things like that. Yes, there's a lot going on today. It looks really good.
Great. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to come and speak to us today, Chris. And I hope the talk goes well.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Okay, so I am now joined by, and I'm going to try and not butcher your surname, Max Smiech. No, I got it wrong.
So that's the issue. Like, my name is Max Smiech, and so
Smiech. But off camera, we were talking about the importance of pronunciation, weren't we? Why was that?
So basically, Smiech in Polish, it means laughter.
Yeah, which is your surname.
Yeah, but the problem is if you pronounce it like Smiech, which is natural for English people, and it means trash. So there's this fine line, and
fine line between laughter and trash.
I've been called here trash like multiple times now. And
well, I apologise profusely for doing that. I will blame that on my stubborn English.
I'll definitely remember that.
so Max, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please, and how you got into the industry?
I am the founder of Decent Simulators. So this is the company where we design and manufacture medical task trainers using silicon casting and 3D printing. And those are those benchtop task trainers for medical students, healthcare professionals, so they can practice their technique on instead of practice it on real people, on you. I learned about medical simulation. Back in Poland, I studied biomedical engineering.
Okay.
So it was kind of like in line with this type of work. But then 6 years ago, me and my wife, we moved to Northern Ireland. And this is where I started to work for TrueCorp, basically. Like, they also like manufacture
airway heads and things
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
So I was their main designer for the past 6 years. And this is where I learned everything about medical simulation, about the industry. And being a huge nerd I just started to work on my own models at home. And at some point I decided that I would like try to make my own models in a slightly different way.
Great.
So that's the whole story.
So silicon casting and 3D printing, I assume that makes things a little bit more accessible, because in the past, these kind of part-task trainers have been very, very expensive for medical companies.
That's the point. I think like the biggest issue with task trainers is that they are still not as accessible as they should, even though they start to appear more in different universities, like teaching hospitals. Sometimes there's this effect that they are almost too expensive to use, if you know what I mean. So people would rarely use that, or at least not as much as they should. So my point is to kind of focus on making them affordable, easy to maintain, easy to produce, but also just to make them not as realistic as possible, but as practical as possible. So I just focus on learning objectives, on learning needs, and I'm trying to match the level of, for example, realism to the user level. They are not too expensive, they are easy to maintain. That's at least our goal. And through constant iterations, like getting feedback and using this 3D printing technology, everything is done in-house. This is what allows me to very quickly change the models, to improve it and also to adjust it to needs.
And bespoke things as well?
Bespoke things.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's the goal, at least.
Great. So why are you here at SimTech Live? What are you talking about today?
Cement Skills are our UK distributor, and they invited us to do those few workshops on basically manufacturing a simple task trainer using free software that you can download from the internet. So I know that lots of SimTechs will have to make different models that are maybe not available commercially, or they are too expensive, or they are tasked
budgets, that kind of thing.
or they are tasked with this thing just a few days before training. So and like 3D printing is a viable option to do it. So hopefully I'll be able to at least give some pointers where to start.
Inspire some people.
To show how much time it takes. What would you need to start if you wanted to make a simple model using these technologies?
Well, fantastic. Well, I hope the talk goes well.
Thank you. I hope as well.
And is there anything else that you're looking forward to in SimTech Live?
There are like lots of interesting events. Like what comes to my mind will be this Charles Everard talk about the biggest troubles or hurdles for SimTechs. Yeah, I think it's going to be quite important.
I think we might find some common themes between the different techs around the
hopefully. No, for sure.
Okay, Max, well, thank you very much for coming to speak to us, and
thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
I'm now joined by Dan Blood. Dan is a senior technician at the University of Surrey. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Again.
Because
we've had you on before.
In person this time.
Indeed. It's lovely. You know, we've met in person before at a previous conference, but when you came on the podcast last time, it was remote. So it's lovely to have you here in person. So Dan, you've come fresh out of a talk, haven't you?
I have.
So tell us a little bit about what the talk was about.
So 2 years ago at a conference, when I heard some descriptions about technicians, I think it became very clear that people didn't know exactly what technicians do, or they didn't appreciate, the variety of what technicians do.
Right, okay.
From technician to technician. So there's a lot of generalization made. And I realised that there's this opportunity here to try and break the role down into constituent parts. Mm-hmm. And there are benefits to that in having those constituent parts available to people.
Okay.
I've compared this to the open source network community in the IT industry. Yeah. So things like I don't know if anybody's familiar with Linux operating systems, or there's a coding website called GitHub where people share coding clusters to help solve problems.
So it's community-based solutions and things like that.
Yeah, it's all outside of companies. Yeah. It's all individuals volunteering their skills to enrich and lift up the technology. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to apply that culture to the SimTech role and identify the source code of a SimTech, as it were, so that we can then develop little constituent parts of SimTech roles.
Are you implying that a sim technician can be zipped and then put onto a GitHub?
I'm not, no. But I am implying that we all do things that we all do. There are things that we all do, and then there are things that only some of us do that others haven't discovered yet. Now, last year I did a workshop on silicone. You know that. You were there. You enjoyed it.
That's at HPSN, right?
Absolutely. And I set out to show people how to make silicone molds. The unexpected benefit of that workshop was that I showed people that silicone isn't scary. And I invited people to get in touch with me, and I would give them a list of ingredients and supplies and things like that my colleague Carrie Pemberton had put together. Fantastic shopping list for success, as it were, in silicone, and to just get you started. And people have emailed me, and they've emailed back saying thank you, and here's what I've tried, here's what I want to achieve, how do I do this? And then they've emailed back further, just say I've been brave, I've been bold, I've managed to achieve these things.
Excellent.
So there are people out there who are now trying stuff because I showed them that silicone isn't scary.
So what were you doing this morning?
This morning I was talking about SimOS, this is me beating a drum.
Okay.
It's not a piece of software. It's not an organization. It's a movement I'm trying to start.
Great.
So, I'm trying to bring together a community around SimTech job roles, so that we can start this discussion.
Yeah.
The mission is to understand the SimTech skill set and its constituent parts. The three benefits that I see of this are: one, we help each other, help ourselves.
Yeah.
So, I learn from you about podcasting, and I learn about microphone setup and cameras and lighting. And I'm hoping to apply those skills to podcasting soon. The second benefit would be we are essentially doing free market research for people who want to design training courses for technicians.
Yes.
They're going to make them anyway. Why not inform them as to what we actually need to make them relevant?
What they think
so
they need,
so if we're ever going to spend money on these things, we want them to be exactly what we want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the third aspect is I want to create some kind of toolkit for would-be employers of SimTechs. So we've got the constituent parts, or I'm calling them blocks in this case. So you can piece something together with these blocks.
You did it like a sort of a Lego brick framework, right?
Yeah, the interlocking play systems are available. In this case, I made a wall because I couldn't afford toys. I made a wall that people filled out.
Yeah, and missing blocks get filled in through SimOS, right?
And the idea, people in tables did these and compared their jobs, and we were trying to weed out niche or uncommon skills or tasks. So then we could identify these unique building blocks, and that could help future employers put together relevant and interesting job descriptions that actually meet the needs of the job without there being all this guesswork. How many technicians have started a job and then they find out that there's 50 other things they've got to do that they didn't expect? So applicants could be informed. Job adverts could be interesting and attractive. How much talent have we lost because it's so mysterious?
Oh, we've had that problem ourselves at our university recently. We talked about this in a podcast. We used the term simulation, and people thought it was computer simulation. And,
Absolutely.
It's clearing up that ambiguity.
People don't want to apply because they don't want to get into healthcare. Because they don't think they're smart enough. But it's not about healthcare. It's about solving, AV problems a lot of the time for me. And when I started in simulation, I was running music events in Canterbury, getting rickety old AV equipment to work. So it pretty much a one-to-one fit for the role.
Yeah. Well, when I spoke to Nicola earlier, she was talking about the transferability from the media industry and teaching as well into simulation as well. So a lot of transferables. How important is an event like this for someone like yourself as a technician?
Very.
Yeah.
So immediate answer, very. And I'm thinking of why, because I, first of all, get to network with people who do the same job as me, but very differently. And I'm learning from them, and I'm benefiting from my own exercise.
Yeah.
I've been to conferences in the past where they've made me feel small and unimportant because I'm surrounded by clinicians and educators and policymakers, the important echelons of our industry. And I don't have anything to say in those spaces because they're talking about things they're talking about the kind of the rules I have to work by rather than coming up with solutions to problems. So here we get to network about the solutions to the problems that we all have.
And that was a very real reason we called your episode, and we'll put a link to that in the description and up in the corner, why we called it the Unsung Heroes, because absolutely, the work that you guys do as technicians, the other people involved in simulation wouldn't be able to work if not. So an event like this, again, fantastic.
Yeah.
So just to finish, what are you looking, because you've been asked to come and speak today, but what are you looking forward to over the next 2 days?
Later on, there's something about facial scanning and getting sort of 3D models sorted. As a man with a beard, I don't feel like dipping my face into some kind of gunk to get a mask of my face made. And I wouldn't want to put someone else through that. Other solutions, let's call them. Just they're attractive to me. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's yesterday at the Oxford Brookes conference. Max from Decent Simulators, he did a wonderful job at demystifying the journey between getting an idea into 3D modelling into that. what I didn't know about was layering software, which takes the 3D model and turns it into something that a 3D printer can print.
Can actually print. Max is here today, actually, so he's going to talk to
In fact, I saw the best bit of swag on the
Yeah,
table.
yeah, the little silicone hand that Max brought in for me.
Excellent. He was such a wonderful job at demystifying that process. And if there's other scanning techniques, that'd be such a great thing to plug into what Max said yesterday.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much, Dan, for coming to talk to us today.
Pleasure.
And we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
So I'm joined now by Charles Everard and Mary Holding. Charles and Mary, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
So can I just start off by asking each of you a little bit about who you are, what your background is, and how you got into simulation? Mary, ladies first.
So my name's Mary Holding. I'm a simulation technician for West Herts Hospitals Trust. My background was really interesting. I sort of did a journalism undergrad.
Okay.
And then a lot of my family worked for the local hospital, and I thought I need a job after university. So I went into admin, and then I fell into simulation, which I think is a very common story for simulation technicians.
I've heard that quite a bit.
So I fell into that, but then I fell in love with it. And then I thought, well, I'm going to learn more about this, and I want to get more into the sort of human factors side of things, debriefing, more of the educational side of things.
Excellent.
So I did my master's in health and medical simulation at University of Hertfordshire.
Yes, yeah.
And then last year I got involved with ASPiH. So I've been doing that for about 13, 14 months.
Excellent.
And a lot of my role is pretty much the sort of mentoring, pastoral type care for technicians up and down the country.
Great. Thank you very much, Mary. What about yourself, Charles?
Me. So I've been in sim for 24 years.
Have you? Can
you believe it? 24 years. And I, again, like Mary, fell into it. Basically, I failed all my exams, went to college, did about 10 different jobs, flipping burgers, motor mechanics, printers.
Finding your niche.
Finding my niche.
Yeah.
And then I got a call. A mate said, got a job in St George's. Fancy coming, and that's when it started. So I started in the postgrad centre at St George's Hospital, moved on to King's College London and managed a surgical training unit there for the hospital, and designed one of their simulation centres, and then moved on to the University of Greenwich in 2019 to design their centre, and joined ASPiH. Same as Mary, last year, August.
Excellent.
And I'm a bit of a tech for hire. So I do Merc. So I do a lot of that. A bit of moonlighting in my spare time.
Yeah, nice. So why are you both here at SimTech Live today?
So we're here to support the technicians. I mean, this is really why we both got into it. Is to pass that knowledge on, because there's various levels of techs here. We want to pass that experience on and sort of just find out about the problems that we have in the tech community, and hopefully kind of collate that information and make it a reality, create a real home for a technician.
Great. And so your presentation is at the end of day one,
yes.
Is that correct? Yeah. And it's what does the current professional landscape look like for simulation technicians, and how can we change this? I'm guessing with ASPiH's help.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. That's sort of what we're planning, yes. So we hear in sort of an abstract way through WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and things like that, the challenges that we're facing.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of similar themes between all of those issues, but it's not really formally written up anywhere for technicians specifically.
Yes.
So what we want to do with ASPiH's help, with all the technicians in the room and up and down the country and Ireland as well, is to really formally get together all of that data of what are the issues, because without having that picture, we're not going to be able to change anything. And I think that's the challenge that a lot of people have been having, is we have all of these conversations, but does it go anywhere?
Yeah. So in the kind of 12 to 18 months that you've been with ASPiH, how much have you heard, has your voice been heard?
I think there's been quite a bit of movement, not just from us, but from a lot of the SIG champions as well.
Great.
So there's lots of various work going on I'd like to name drop Eli Grumble. He's done a fantastic bit of work on collating various different job descriptions within London and has created a real complex matrix of where you can kind of drop what you do in and it will come up with some sort of a pay scale. So it's getting all these pockets of information, pulling it together under the ASPiH umbrella, and hopefully we can really try and create something unique that techs deserve.
I think a turning point as well was having the board members attend tech SIGs, so special interest group meetings online, because I think people think that if they complain about it, it's getting heard. Because it's getting heard by someone, but is it getting heard by the right people?
Exactly, yeah.
So getting the right people in the room and then them turning around on a meeting later saying, oh, we need to address this.
Yeah.
And we need to stop it being the first time they're hearing it. We need to say right at the beginning when the problems arise. Yeah. And I think that's what we're trying to do now.
Yeah, great. I mean, there's so many moving parts, isn't there, in working parts in simulation as a educational method of delivery, whether that's in a university or whether it's in a hospital trust. And the technicians are pivotal. They really are.
Exactly. And I think on the 2023 ASPiH standards, they've moved technicians under faculty. I mean, arguably, that's a bit late and we wanted it. But the fact that it's being done...
It's a move in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're moving in that direction is really great. And I think hopefully we're going to keep that pace and keep it going forward now.
Great.
And if you think about, we've got 3 events. Yesterday there was one at Oxford Brookes. We had about 60 techs there. Today there's another 70.
Yeah.
And ASPiH 85.
Yeah.
So that's 3 events within the space of 3 months.
Yeah, that's great. Moving in the right direction.
So you can see there's momentum.
There's momentum. So, last question. Where would you like that momentum to ultimately go to? What do you see as the future? What would you like to see? And again, how could ASPiH be involved with that?
I see a proper structure, a career path for technicians.
Yep.
So a competency of core skills and desirables, equal job pay between HEIs and trusts, and a proper accreditation system.
Great. So certainly in my university, technicians are... where they sit in the university structure is challenging sometimes. They, sometimes they're compared to admin and clerical staff. Sometimes they're compared to scientific technicians, which is a slightly different role. So anything to help that, I think, is definitely a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
100%.
What about yourself, Mary?
I agree with everything that's been said, and I think the professionalisation of the role and having the opportunities for people to develop their role as well. It doesn't need to be anything outside their core if they're happy with what they've got and they're happy with those skills. But having the training programs available and the support to send them on these training programs is really where I want to see it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you both so much for coming onto the podcast and speaking to me today. And I hope your presentation at the end of day one goes well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, I'm now joined by Nathan Connell, who is from the University of Salford.
Hello.
So Nathan, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the industry of simulation.
A while ago, about 2018, I think, I had come back to England from a brief stint in Canada. Wanted to work out there. And I'd found myself working in a hospital in healthcare, which was quite cool, acute neuro rehab at the time. Then, a couple of years passed, I'd sort of ironed out my trade a bit, and then this job came up that seemed to fit my skills perfectly. He said background as a technician and a little bit of healthcare experience, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll see what's going on here. And then it just opened up a world of simulation to me. Prior to sort of all of that, I'd trained to be an audiovisual technician, so I was sort of blown away by how much that would come into play.
Yeah, transferable skills, right?
Yeah, in terms of recording, streaming, sound, but then just operating simulators as well. Having that technological background really just gave me a bit of a bolster, so I didn't have to learn quite as much as someone who just had no background whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So you're here today. Well, you're here it's a 2-day conference. And
Yes,
your presentation's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's MetaHuman, how to run, set up and utilise MetaHumans in simulated practice learning.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have put the end bit on there. I should have just said MetaHuman in one word.
Yeah, well, so begs the question, can you explain what a MetaHuman is?
Yeah, so a MetaHuman is a virtual avatar, essentially.
Okay.
And very lifelike in terms of facial expression. And what we try and do is, so you can create it. It's a completely free resource made by, Epic Games.
Yeah.
And they're
A Fortnite fame, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and they're Unreal Engine, which is, as the name implies, Unreal.
Yeah.
So you use the MetaHuman Creator to put together a series of faces and then take sort of the bits that you'd like from those faces, the features. Then you can import that into the Unreal Engine and subsequently use a live link, which is an app you can get on an iPad with a true depth camera.
Okay.
And it's the same software that you use to unlock your phone with your face if you've got an Apple device. And that means that it just maps your face and sends that live data to the avatar in real time. So its mouth moves when yours does. You can puff out your cheeks, your tongue, so you get that authentic empathetic feedback instantaneously.
Well, how useful is that in simulation where we're used to
mannequins,
plastic mannequins,
yeah,
which are very emotionless?
Yes, yeah, a little bit, yeah. So technicians are almost defamed for, we operate the mannequins behind this glass, that one-way glass.
Yeah.
And, we sometimes have to put on voices, become different demographics. Sometimes that's difficult for certain, facilities to replicate because maybe they need certain demographics or ethnicities and they just don't have that underlying equipment. So this enables you to sort of emulate any of those things, non-biasedly, which is great. So you can put in sort of a small child, which we've done a few times for some of the policing sims we run. We put in trainee nurses, sort of simulated, who are someone that the other nursing students can empathise with during their student simulated practice learning, sorry. And then we've also gone as far as introducing older generations as well. So we can, sort of have, the plan is to implement a branching scenario where they would do this scenario potentially with a mannequin. Yeah. Then you'd come back to the room and see maybe 6 months after, how did their care impact this person? What's the background like behind them? What's the setting like? Have they gained a bit of weight? Do they look a bit older and thinner? Or perhaps they look better and weller because they'd followed the advice they were given based on the care that they were provided with.
Wow, that's so exciting how we can harness that technology.
Absolutely, yes.
Which is already existing and use it so creatively in simulation.
Exactly. I mean, I think technicians are famed again for innovation. Anything that is new can be utilised. We'll find a use for it, absolutely. And some of the things we've seen here today are, incredible. It's utilising things that you might just have lying around or things that you can sort of get specifically, and just sort of taking them and making different things out of a purpose that perhaps they weren't built for, which is really very cool.
Great stuff. So we're on with day one today. Your presentation's day 2.
Yes.
So good luck for that one.
Thank you very much.
What have you seen today that you found particularly interesting?
So I've been to a couple of workshops today. I'm about to go into another one, which I'm looking forward to. So the first one was sort of handling interactions or training the facilitators how to speak to their technicians, essentially. So how can we bridge the gap between our misconnects sometimes?
Nice.
We had a whole...
Communication breakdown is such a common problem, isn't it?
100%. And it just had us listing what we would like to happen, what is currently happening, how might we go about solving it, and what the sort of steps towards that, who would implement that going forward, which was brilliant. It was the GROW model. Which was very cool. And then after that, we went to see Decent simulators.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they've got 3D printing on the go. They're using programs like Blender, which is a free resource, just like, the Unreal Engine. So, again, something you can utilize to create something.
Getting those creative sparks flying,
right?
Yeah,
100%. You've got people coming out there being like, we need to get a 3D printer. And I was like, well, we've got one lying around. We don't really use it that much. And, maybe it's time to unbox it again and see what we can get out of it.
Great stuff. So thank you very much, Nathan, for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
All the best with your talk tomorrow.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now joined by Bradley Woodward of RiVR, or RiVR. Can you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and then how you got into the simulation industry, please?
Of course, yeah. I'm managing director and co-founder of RiVR. We started life about 2017. My background is 10 years in policing, also have a degree in business, and I moved into areas of training and development throughout my career. I'm also a trained actor, drama coach.
Okay.
And I also am a qualified hypnotherapist and hypnoanalyst. So
wow.
3, 2, 1, you're back in the room.
Many strings to your bow.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why I mention that is because those 3 strands of my life, which is investigation, understanding theatre, and a little bit about how the mind works, kind of all roads lead to Rome, but this led us into looking at immersive technology as a way to train and educate people in a way that it accelerates learning and, more importantly, the retention of knowledge.
Excellent. So can you tell us a little bit more about what RiVR is for anyone who doesn't know, and why you're here today, what you're talking about at SimTech
of course.
Live?
We were fortunate in, when we started the company, to have some very interesting clients like Department of Science Technology Lab and the Home Office. And we started to integrate passive and interactive virtual reality in areas that are particularly difficult to train or very expensive.
Yep.
But throughout that process, we also developed a turnkey solution which synchronized any number of headsets together, which allows classroom training to be developed and produced on site by the end user, which makes it a very contextual and rapid way of creating immersive technology and experiences. And we now have a product that sells globally. We have clients that range from Interpol through to numerous NHS trusts, police, fire, ambulance. But we are agnostic in terms of industry, so it can be any industry. Yeah. So we also do things in construction and engineering and things like that as well.
That's great. And what's your talk here today?
We're going to be demonstrating our synchronized headset solution for rapid training. We were fortunate with the development of the cameras during lockdown, actually, in 2019, 2020. Yeah. The technology advanced very quickly, so it now means that we can allow our end users to become their own virtual reality companies so they can produce their own content. Yeah, great. I think you're absolutely right. I think a couple of years ago, virtual reality probably felt a little bit out of reach for most people, but the horizons change now, I guess. Well, the price points come down. Yeah. And again, this ability for the end user, because they know what content they want and they know what they want to train and develop. And this allows them to do that without the on costs that you would normally have getting a production company like ourselves to produce it for them.
Yeah. And where do you see the future of your area of business going?
Well, we also do interactive virtual reality as well. That's the ability to have a headset on and move around the physical and the virtual world at the same time. We've just recently launched a crime scene investigation product that is twinned with our fire investigation product. We're launching a collision investigation at the back end of this year. And that's a completely new process in terms of VR because, again, we're allowing authoring tools to the end user so they can create their own scenes rather than it just being a one-trick pony where it just does what we say you're going to do. Yeah. So that's really exciting. And that allows us, because of the way in which we've developed the programs, to add on anything into that, which is going to be quite quick to produce. So if something's got a specific need around an end use case or an outcome, then we can help them with that really quickly. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Well, Bradley, I hope you enjoy SimTech Live. Good luck with your talks today.
Thank you. I'm enjoying to see the reaction from everybody. We've got some really interesting things to show.
I've spoken to a few people already yesterday and this morning, and I think your workshop's already generating a lot of attention.
Brilliant.
So all the best.
Thanks very much indeed.
And thanks for joining us.
Cheers now.
So I'm joined now by Aaron Thind. Hi, Aaron.
Hi there.
And you are part of SimEPR, or you're the owner, founder of SimEPR, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the industry.
So I'm a GP based in London.
Okay.
And I'm the founder of SimEPR. And essentially, the idea behind SimEPR came from my own kind of training experience or clinical training as a medical student. One of the things I found is that all of my training in simulation, which was a hugely valuable experience for me as a doctor now, everything was on paper. And one of the things I realized once I graduated from medical school and started working on the front line.
But it's not anymore.
It's not anymore. And it's increasingly becoming more digital.
Yeah.
And so there was that digital discrepancy between what's happening on the front line, on the shop floor, so to speak, and what's happening in terms of training our staff. And actually, that digital discrepancy is my aim to solve, essentially, with SimEPR. Having an educational electronic patient record that's used alongside the mannequin during simulation training. So you can combine those digital skills with those clinical skills right from the very start when healthcare professionals are being trained.
Increase ease of use, authenticity, all of those kinds of things, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, even from my own personal experience, I was expected to, prescribe medication, request scans and things on a patient record system that I'd never had any experience using any sort of electronic system in my clinical training. And you can imagine the number of errors that might occur as a result of that lack of training experience.
We, in a previous episode, actually, we've had a pharmacist on who talked about the fact that they didn't have any training about answering telephone calls. And actually, when they got into it in clinical practice, they found it hugely challenging. And actually, the skills and stuff they did that was relatively simple in comparison. So,
yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about why you're here at Sim & Skills and what your presentation was about.
So essentially, I've got a kind of close business relationship with Sim & Skills. So they've been working with me in terms of SimEPR. It's as a result of some of their work, SimEPR has been kind of deployed across the UK for training healthcare staff how to, in terms of developing their clinical skills as well as their digital skills in universities, hospitals across the UK. And I think, so I'm a self-taught software developer, and SimEPR is something I've built myself alongside my clinical work. And I think this was an opportunity for me to share my story behind building SimEPR, as well as teaching some of those coding skills to some of the delegates today.
So you did a bit of basic coding today, did you?
Bit of basic coding, live programming. I took them through the first app I ever built and some of the key bits of code that I used to build it. Yeah. Just to give them the flavor in terms of how, you can build these solutions that can solve real problems using software, and how powerful that skill can be.
Yeah, great. And the technician community, they are a community of fixers and doers, and they've got little side hustles, and they often get involved with AV solutions, coding, that kind of thing. We've had another presentation about 3D printing. They are problem solvers, and so that kind of fits really nicely into the work that you're doing as well.
Absolutely. Not only they're problem solvers, they're also very techy, and they're dealing with tech on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's something that interests them and gets them going. So definitely giving them those extra skills or giving them an insight into those extra things that they might not have considered in the past is certainly valuable.
Great. So Aaron, just to close then, what's next for SimEPR? What's in the pipeline without giving too much away?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my overall vision behind SimEPR is in the NHS is to have for it to be completely standard to have your simulation training and medical education without paper. The idea for me, or my mission for SimEPR, is to ensure that every healthcare professional that's being trained in the UK is having training using SimEPR, replacing the paper-based systems, so that when they finish their training and they're out there on the front line, they have those digital skills alongside their clinical skills.
Great. I think we've got a way to go yet, but that's what an ambitious thing to aim for. And it's certainly given me some food for thought, because we still do our stuff on paper. So we'll have to catch up after this.
Yeah, maybe it's worth a chat about that.
Aaron, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you for your time.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'm joined now by Joe Natalello. Joe, welcome to the podcast and welcome to SimTech Live.
Thank you, Tony.
You're from Staffordshire University?
I am, yeah.
And you are a lecturer, but you are also a SimTech?
I was, yeah. So I've very much sat on both sides of this invisible fence, right?
Yeah.
Started at Staffordshire University coming up to like 8 years ago, almost, as a simulation technician. So very much getting hands-on with the equipment, setting up, creating simulation artifacts, operations, logistics, room bookings.
Yeah, and then you move to the dark side.
Right. Well, if you want to call it that, I mean, I will let you say that.
I can say that because I'm an academic as well.
And yeah, I increasingly through the course of being a simulation technician, I got involved with the education side. So I was doing some facilitation, some debriefing. And a position came up, and I was like, you know what? I really want to get into the education side of it, and look at simulation in perhaps an alternative way. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. But I think it's definitely about getting those two strands working together effectively.
And that's a little bit about why you're here and what you're going to be talking about today, isn't it? So just give us an insight about what your talk's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really excited to be here and be talking about this today. It's about how, from a simulation technician's viewpoint, you can go about sort of effectively working with your academic colleagues to almost break down those barriers. There are challenges that I think will come up in the session that will be identified from a simulation technician point of view. And it's all about using basically a coaching model to look at some challenges, setting some goals, and then trying to look at the options and way forward to achieve those goals and break down those kinds of barriers.
Great.
And I have some proposals as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think that human interaction is one of the most challenging ones to deal with. If you've got your kit, you've got your sim center and stuff, that all works. But sometimes it's the human interaction which is the challenge. So, what would be? And I know we can't sort of deep dive into the talk, but what would be like a quick win for you in terms of getting people to work together?
I think it's communication. It has to be, right? Top of the list. How can we talk to each other and collaborate effectively if we don't have a well-established communication strategy? And that might be, a memorandum of understanding, or something, slightly less official, or it could be a policy. But this is how we're both going to agree to communicate in this fashion, and we're going to set and establish timelines, deadlines, and all that sort of stuff. I think it's a communication strategy, in short.
Yeah, great, a great bit of advice. And we know in healthcare, 80% of healthcare errors are through communication breakdown,
right?
And the same could probably be said in simulation as well. So, Joe, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast and tell us a little bit about what you're here to talk about today. I hope the talk goes well.
Thank you.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So I'm now joined by Emily Browne. Emily, thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you for hosting this event, because we are at SimTech Live at Midlands Air Ambulance Charity.
That's right, you certainly are. And we are just delighted to host this conference. It's fantastic. It's great for us as a charity to have great organisations coming and using our space and being able to kind of share the knowledge that I know. And because I have my own love for simulation, it's even more special. So
tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do now.
Okay, so I'm currently the Head of Education and Training here at Midlands Air Ambulance Charity. I'm also a nurse. And prior to joining the air ambulance, I worked in a university and organised simulation, built sim centres, that kind of thing. Prior to that, I was an actual nurse and still am occasionally. I do go out and do my clinical shifts, but I was predominantly ED. And I was in the RAF reserves as well. So this is the dream job for me. It's education. I get to go out and do some nursing, and it's helicopters. So it's like all of my passions all together.
We had a bit of excitement this morning, for us anyway. I'm sure it's old hat to you, but one of the helicopters took off, and we were all out there. Grabbing some footage of it.
It's still exciting, it's a really great place to work, and the bonus of knowing what our teams go out and do, and being able to be part of that, albeit as an extra person on the shift when I go and do a clinical shift, it's a privilege to be able to do that. But it's still exciting when we see that.
And tell us a little bit about the venue, because it looks very shiny and very new and very impressive.
It is still very shiny and new. So this is our new airbase, which we opened in August 2023. A year. So we've been operational here for a year. and we raised funds to build this purpose-built facility for our air ambulance charity headquarters. So at the base, we have 2 helicopters here. One of them forward deploys to our Stoke and Stafford area, Taton Hill, every morning, but comes back here to bed at night time in the big hangar. And then we have another base down in Strensham with our 3rd helicopter. But this is the base where all of our non-clinical staff are based as well. So all of our fundraisers, our HR, our marketing teams are all based here. And it's the first time really that we've had the clinicians and the non-clinician staff all together. So it feels more like a family. And, you know, the facility is fantastic. And we are a charity. Everything that we do is 100% charitable donation. We don't get any funding from government or any other areas. Everything is done through fundraising.
And that's similar to a lot of air ambulance trusts, isn't it?
All of the English air ambulances are charitably funded. So we're all in that same boat.
Donations are very much needed.
Very much needed. And we operate the largest area in England. We have quite a large patch. But we've been in operation since 1991, when we had one helicopter that was chained to a tree at night for so we've moved on. This lovely, shiny new base offers lots more opportunities for us now. So hosting the SimTech conference is just fantastic. Being able to have these people here, using our facility, enjoying what we've got is great. And so we obviously host external people, but we run our own skills and simulation courses as well. So I'm learning things from these people that I can then use in my
fantastic,
courses.
fantastic. So SimTech Live is obviously the first time it's run. Just going back to your point you made about having a family and you know and bringing people together. I think there's been a recurring theme about that through SimTech Live this past couple of days, is the importance of people working together and the technical team certainly having a voice.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we work in isolation so much in our simulation centres, whether they're in universities, hospitals, places like this. You know, you can often feel alone. There's some great WhatsApp groups out there, but actually getting people together to talk about their passion, to talk about all of these really exciting things that they do. But at the moment, there's no space for technicians really in that. You know, a lot of the conferences out there are designed very much for academics, are pitched at a different level.
And maybe like a token gesture to technicians.
Absolutely. But this is really about technicians and what they bring. And for me, technicians are worth their weight in gold.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
They're the most important person. You can have as many exciting ideas about simulation as you want. You can have got, you know, phenomenal pedagogy, but if you haven't got a technician who can bring it to life, who can get it all together for you, it's never going to be a reality. And we don't give enough value to our technicians. So the fact that Skills and Sim and Skills have brought about this conference with those people in mind, I think is just an amazing thing.
And we're drawing towards the end of day 2 now, and there's a real buzz, isn't there? There's a real buzz. There's clearly been an appetite for this.
And they're all talking. Everybody's sharing. Everybody's going, come and see me. No, I'll come and see you. And I did this. And, this is how you get around that. It feels like family, like you say. It feels like we're getting together with the people that get us. And I really like that. It's been a great 2 days.
Great. Well, thank you so much for hosting such an amazing event.
Thank you all for coming.
The barbecue yesterday was fantastic.
It was good.
It was really, really good. And looking forward to seeing the rest of the SimTech Live out, and hopefully maybe back next year.
I'd like that very much.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Okay, Nicola, so we have just had the kind of closing plenary session of the conference. It's been I guess for you, a long 2 days, but a fun-packed 2 days. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it has. We've had so much amazing feedback from everybody that's attended. Everybody's really enjoyed it, and I'm so pleased that the goal that we had was that it was going to be a really good learning experience, but a good networking experience. And that's what seems to have happened, is that we've had a really kind of relaxed flow to the 2 days, considering we're moving around 70 people all in one go. But actually, everybody's managed to have some time in between sessions to make connections. Even just last night at the barbecue, listening to technicians, passing on each other's details to each other so that they could connect and to continue these relationships.
Yeah, there were some great conversations, wasn't there? And I think there's definitely been some themes of some recurring challenges that people are facing across the country.
In some of the sessions yesterday, technicians were saying the same things. They've got the same frustrations, same limitations, and just reaching out to somebody who's also facing that but might have an alternative solution to deal with that problem just massively helps. And that's what, in everything we're trying to do as a company, is trying to build a kind of community around what we do, so that it is that, as Mark's just said in his closing speech, is that we want to be there to help offer solutions to our customers, and we want to be part of that kind of journey with them, helping to support them. So we're hopeful that from this event, we'll be able to run another event next year. Doesn't feel like that right now. Now we're at the end of day 2. But we want to continue with the online SimTech Online that we launched here, and that technicians can go back and access the workshop slides. They can still continue to talk to each other, and really that be a launch pad for having those great connections. Great.
So, I mean, it's obviously still quite fresh at the moment, so you're still probably processing things, but like a hot debrief, like what have you taken away from this, and have you got any ideas for things that might
The first thing is that I can't run this on my own. I've had.
We've got a bigger team now, haven't you?
We've got a much bigger team. We've definitely learned a lot of things about how we kind of communicate with people, how we kind of structure things, and we're going to be asking for people's written feedback as well. So we've had lots of positive feedback from people, but we want people to also tell us what we could improve on as well. And SimTech Live was born out of listening to technicians. Yeah. So if we're going to make any changes going forward, then we need to listen to what it is they would prefer us to do, and to learn from that and try to make it an even better conference next year. We were just debating this morning, would we move away from this venue, because it's such an amazing venue.
I spoke to Emily earlier, and she's keen to have you back. It's fantastic, isn't it?
And it's centrally located. It's it's in the Midlands. It's, for most people, it's a fairly okay journey. And there are helicopters here. So
it's win-win, isn't it? All around.
We were lucky earlier on. We all got to go out onto the helipad, and we had to literally drag people back off the airfield to get them back in, because everyone's just fascinated by the helicopters. So, and the way that it's worked with the building as well. We've got some great rooms that we could run workshops simultaneously. And that's the one thing I would keep for the next year. We decided to do
really well,
a carousel where you've got 3 workshops running all at the same time, but they repeat 3 times.
Yeah.
So there's no choosing.
I've been to conferences before where you have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
And often there are really good conflicting sessions. Yeah. So being able to get to everything is, I think, a great part of the conference.
Yeah, I think so. And that's definitely one thing that has really worked. And then also having the breaks in between as well. We've tried to make it that there are breaks so that people can come away, digest what they've just heard. Some of the concepts that the technicians and our partners have been talking about over the past 2 days are mind-blowing. It's like future technologies that are being harnessed and accessed now. And a lot of our speakers have done so well at showing how that technology can be really accessible, and that you could take it into your organisation and use it and improve what you do.
There's lots of exciting thoughts bubbling around. I've spoken to a couple of people, and there's definitely an energy and an appetite for those new technologies, and like you say, accessible as well.
And we can't, many of the sort of frustrations and the issues that technicians are facing, we can't solve them by having a fun 2 days. Yeah. But hopefully, having events like this helps to raise the profile of technicians, the role that they do, the really important role that they do, and that we can help to kind of build what they're hoping to achieve, which is to get that recognition that they deserve.
It's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Nicola, thank you so much for stepping in and co-hosting this episode with me.
I don't think I'll be taking Lawrence's job anytime soon. His job is safe.
and thank you so much for inviting SimCast to Sim and Skills Live. It's
Yeah,
it's been great.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great to have you here. So we really hope you come to the next SimTech Live next year.
Yeah, we will be. We'll sign us up.
Yeah.
And we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you in the next one.